Now the stream is starting. All right. So last time on A Crown of Cold Iron, our party of intrepid investigators have been on the trail of a series of arsons that have taken place against religious institutions in the city of Queensboro. You've investigated several religious sites, both those that were attacked directly and those that you believe might be involved or potentially be future targets. All of this at the prompting of Lieutenant Davis, a practicing Solinist cleric who is on sort of permanent loan with the Queensboro Police. And you all have had a heck of a time of it. You've spent some time with the Radiant Dawn, a moderate group of Solinists. You've spent time with Pathers and Spiritualists. You've been attacked by giant flaming creatures. You've fought giant goat demons as a hellscape opened up outside the apartment of a Radiant Dawn member. You had a high-speed car chase that ended in several different forms of attack, including what seemed to be arcane explosives planted in your vehicle somehow, and Lexi being outright banished to hell for a few moments. But you all have regrouped.
Just a normal Tuesday.
You all have regrouped and are following up on some leads and some upcoming events. You've heard that the Solinists are preparing some kind of gathering to address the rising tension. And I believe that Auric was planning to check in with his current client, Mrs. Caroline, who's a member of the Tamaran faith, whose daughter Beery was the one attacked by goat demons and a recent convert to Radiant Dawn.
Zaru is going to tag along too.
All right. So Zyra and Auric to the Tamaran Community Center. What are Lexi and Cyrus doing?
Cyrus is planning on heading to the main Solinist to where they're going to meet and see if we could rendezvous with Lieutenant Davis. And
I'll go with him. Sorry, the reason I have my computer on my lap right now is I just got a text message from a parishioner about a community member who passed away. And so I'm emailing that out. I've been requested to email that out. So
no worries.
The joys of life.
How dare.
I figure since Lieutenant Davis seems to have taken an interest in Lexi and bartender good with crowd control, she ought to have some good insight into what would people do if shit hit the fan in this space.
Hey, listen up. Oh God, I just shared with my father.
Love it.
Middle school teacher.
Bartender, 8th grade teacher, same thing.
Same thing. Corralling
Drunk
a bunch
little
of
maniacs.
That's what it is. It's corralling a bunch of idiots.
All right. Here's an interesting question. How are Zyra and Auric getting to the Tamaran Community Center? We've never split the party like this before.
They ain't taking pokey.
Great question, because I don't drive.
We're taking public transit, right?
Public transit.
Classes.
Yeah, you can take public transit.
Yeah, we'll take public transit.
I love public transit.
It's good for people watching.
It really is. You humans are fascinating.
We try.
I like to think that this conversation is happening out loud. And when you say you humans are fascinating, like the person next to you goes.
Or just standing there. You humans are fascinating.
They just turn their music up.
This conversation is out loud.
I just found a typo in my notes from like a bajillion years ago. The Tamaran Community Center is in the neighborhood of Vert. It's a pretty nice part of Vert. Barrett tends to run the gamut from kind of lower middle class all the way up to like breaching into lower upper class. Most of the middle class life in the center of town is stuck into Barrett, although there's more pockets out along the edges of town, like where Zyra's family lives. But in this case, you're able to make your way through this fairly, it's a weird, almost suburban slice of life here. It doesn't totally get to like distinct houses, but you definitely get the impression there are less people living per square foot here. You see a lot more parks. You see there are local restaurants, but they're definitely less of like the hole in the wall that you would find a lot in Falmouth. So you all make your way to the Tamarin Community Center. It's a fairly low-key building. The outside has a very blocky sort of style to it. You do see a lot of little things, though, that hint at it being a center for at least part of the neighborhood. You see both a sort of ornamental garden, but also a food garden. You see what looks like some various sort of rough and tumble sports equipment out there, some basketball goals, what looks like maybe some soccer nets. Let's see, it is morning-ish, pretty early still. So there's not a ton of people running around, but you do see a few folks coming in and out. Make a perception check.
Oh, 14.
17.
All right. This actually seems very appropriate. Oric, you, having seen a lot of pictures of the Carolines, but also for other reasons, you do notice something a little strange. You've seen Fae with every imaginable hair color. It just runs the whole gamut. You've seen people with brown hair, black hair, blue hair, green hair, hair made of fire, hair made of vines, hair made of all kinds of things. But you kind of gathered that natural human hair colors tend to run in a certain range. And as you see a few people coming in and out, you notice that there's more of there's almost like weird accents in the hair of the people going in. Disproportionately right around the community center, some of the folks that you see someone who's kind of idly pruning a little bit in the garden, doing some watering. There's a couple of kids who look probably still like pre-public school, kind of running around under loose supervision. And the thing that sticks out is they all have this weird metallic tint. It's not as dramatic as what you saw in Beery's hair, but you see just a little bit in each of them.
Now might be a good time to remind you that my ring of seeming, the glamour of my appearance, has definitely golden hair.
And speaking of which, while I pull this up, I scared the heck out of myself thinking I had drastically spoiled something the other day because I was worried that the game log is not as smart as I had hoped. And I thought it had sent the name of an NPC that was a very like big thing to all of you. Because I don't name them expecting you to see them. Like they're named whatever will help me find them. So anyway,
So the name was Big Bad Evil Guy, apparently.
I mean, there's some severe spoilers in this list. Oric, Auric, make a dexterity saving throw.
Oh boy. Oh, how's a 14 do?
It does pretty good. You hear suddenly, like without warning, as you're just sort of standing here looking around, a young child's voice suddenly comes out of nowhere, yelling, "Pew pew, dragon fight!" And the "blah" is actually accompanied by a small bolt of fire that you just barely managed to like get your head away from. And you
The
see
hell?
you see a small child with mostly like dirty blonde, but with like some gold tint. Looks like maybe 9-ish. And he just like full like shot fire at you. And you hear a very distressed woman's voice. Torin, what are you doing? And Nala Caroline comes running around a corner, having apparently like just dropped a box of something, and like puts a hand over Torin's mouth as he like starts to. Torin, what are you doing? I was shooting fire at the Dragon Man. You were what? I was shooting fire at the Dragon Man.
I mean, that's fair.
Why?
Is this not how your children behave normally? It's totally normal.
No, it's not normal.
I can't tell if this conversation is in character or out of character.
And
And
but it's a closeout.
Now, Torin, normally we save the dragon fire for non-living targets for a while until we control it.
I gotta fight the bad guys.
maybe not. But did you think he was a bad guy?
The monster dragon guy.
Monster?
The monster dragon guy.
Now I'm sad. I'm not a monster. I'm a person.
Auric begins to make fake giant crocodile ears.
Who says they're fake?
Torin just does the sort of like sociopathic 9-year-old shrug to your pain.
It happens.
Hi, Zyra remembers the name of the woman that we're meeting.
Yeah, this is Nala Caroline.
Nala, we were coming to Arg has been, you asked Arg to look after Beery. And we had a conversation with Beery yesterday, so we came to have a conversation with you about her. Should we have it with the sociopath or not?
1 second. I'm putting all the names in chat.
That's cool.
Mama is Nala, Beery is the college age, and Torin is the 9-year-old.
Well, I could tell you that, but it's not like I'm going to remember any of the other names.
I also had to make sure as I put it in that I took any like spoilers out from my notes.
Before you copied and pasted, yeah.
Yeah.
Did
That's
not remember the name.
That's why I had to make a redacted lore page to send you all, because I'd got in the habit of like just dropping massive spoiler bombs as I wrote.
It happens.
All right.
So it's nice to meet you in person.
I thought you met her in person the other day.
No, we're on the phone.
Oh.
Nope. All phones so far.
Oh, yeah.
Shows what Rachel remembers.
I mean, for your characters, it's only been a couple of days. For you all, it has literally been 7 weeks. 8 weeks, really, because you started this during the interlude session. So,
Yep.
Nala puts out her hand to greet people.
How do you spell that? How do you spell that?
Does Auric remember that humans shake hands, or does this become awkward?
Give me a raw wisdom check.
Yep.
Oh, I'm not shaking anybody's hand.
13 seems like I remember enough to like grasp the hand and kind of wiggle.
Yeah, you can get it from context clues. It might feel a little weird. You also feel a there's a couple of different sensations that hit you at once. One, there is a little bit of a strange warmth in her hand. Again, Auric is not 100% up on human biology, but it strikes you that what strikes you is that it seems familiar. You know, like, especially the sort of fire-attuned Dragonborn tend to run very hot, just like most silver and white Dragonborn would run very, very cold. This feels like a higher than human temperature, which is a little odd. Also, where do you have Beery's amulet?
Sweater vest inside pocket.
You feel
There are pockets inside your sweater vest?
Auric is a very special person.
I'm a PI.
Custom made.
utility sweater vest.
It's like you don't kill. Only a vest.
That was exactly what I was about to say.
Because of course we have to make that joke about you.
So you feel it in your pocket, kind of, and there is a nearly identical heat coming off of the amulet. Nala doesn't seem to necessarily like super key in on this, but she shakes your hand and says, "Oh, Mr. Darlanton, I'm so glad you're able to make it. How is? Have you heard from Beery? Do you know what's going on?"
Well, when last seen, she was doing well.
Wow.
What?
I feel like you need to make a deception check on that one.
When we last saw her, she was doing well.
Is that the whole statement?
It's not wrong. It's evasive.
But that is part of the reason that we're here, is to talk to you about Beery.
What happened?
It's complicated. Is there someplace private we could talk?
Yeah. Oh, forgive me. Come this way. And without even looking, she just like auto finds the back of Torin's collar and like is kind of gently pulling him along as he like air fights imaginary monsters.
The mom superpower.
Yeah. And you do actually notice it's just another one of those strange moments of like you're kind of doing mental math of like how much can a human woman pick up with one hand, and it's like she could probably lift him, but she's like easily carrying him like a couple inches off the ground. Like he's full like jump kicking in the air, and she just seems to be carrying him with like little or no effort, just comfortably along beside you all.
She has scruffed him like a mama cat.
Yep. Except it
And
doesn't
he's
calm him
acting like
down.
this is totally normal too.
Yeah. This is Torin's like 18/7 mode, like chaos monster or asleep. That's all he's got.
Sounds like a 9-year-old boy.
So 18,
Okay, cool.
So Nala leads you inside, Torin coming along. Once you get in, she kind of lets Torin just sort of disappear into the rest of the building. The building definitely looks a little dated inside. You would imagine that it's probably 40 or 50 years old. It does look very well kept, but just the signs of like aging architecture, out of date fixtures. There's clearly a lot of love and duct tape kind of helping to hold this place together. But you're led to a sort of a small kitchen that's off to the side. It is very noticeable compared to the Radiant Dawn. This is not necessarily as much of a, like an evangelistic institution. Make a religion check.
Both?
Both of you all.
Boom. Yeah, that was
Wow. Rolling well tonight, 18.
Nice.
4. The natural one. Zara was so distracted by the psychopath, she's got nothing.
Well, I think maybe Auric is just really excited because, you know, you probably did some research and looked some stuff up. And so you actually know about a human thing, and you know more than the human person does. We're using human very loosely in all ways here. And you recall that the Tamaran religion, even in the framework like Solinus, super evangelistic. Pathers, more towards the middle. Spiritualists, just a little bit under them. Tamarans are way down there. A handful of folks might convert, but it's usually more like through marriage, or folks who maybe left the faith at some point in the past and came back. What you read online, the core story of the Tamarans is basically that a very long time ago, thousands of years ago, a deity called Tamara rescued their people. And they've been sort of an ancestral cult, but not in the creepy sense. But just in the sense that like this has been their patron deity in remembrance of this thing that was done. And unlike a lot of other religions that faded out, especially other ancient religions, Tamarans were weird for a long time because what you now know to be like the real history of the world was part of their mythos. So they were insisting like, no, there totally used to be dragons and fairies and dwarves and ogres and and we worship a deity from this period. So they were always considered a little odd. They were right. And so it's mostly practiced by descendants from these people.
Are their holidays mostly centered around They tried to kill us. They failed. Let's drink.
There's definitely some of those. You do remember you actually found a lot of weird parallels as you looked through their theology and their stories.
Parallels to what?
What?
Parallels to what?
Well, specifically, Auric would be noticing, again, there's these weird draconic parallels.
Mhm.
Chromatic and metallic, always in the same sort of division. And Tamara was specifically said to be a patron deity of dragons. She was or is a draconic deity.
Sorry.
So all of this is just sort of, we're flashing back to Auric doing like Wikipedia research on his phone. And now we're back, and Nala is sort of bustling about this little kitchen. Again, looks very dated, but very well kept. Coffee, tea. I think we've got some soft drinks somewhere. I want a soda. Torin, no.
Oh, coffee is lovely, thank you, but only if you're already making it. I don't want to impose.
Oh no, we've had folks working all morning. We've got coffee running. We've got tea going.
I'll take some coffee too.
So she comes back out with 3 coffees and a juice box.
Very kind.
I proceed to chug the coffee.
Make a very, very low Constitution check. Or Constitution saving throw.
Okay.
Jumping down.
18.
All right. You only needed like a 5. It is just absolutely scalding hot. And you notice that as she goes to set it down, she doesn't have like a carrying device or anything. She's just like fully holding them by like the base of the cup and just sets them down and is completely like unfazed by this incredibly scalding hot coffee.
Awesome.
Zyra is taking all sorts of mental notes while Eric's like, I don't know, humans, man.
Right. I'm like, where's the are there fire extinguishers here? Like, where are the like, is there one under the sink? Maybe. I'm just wondering.
Oh yes, we're well up on fire extinguishers. And she like she opens underneath the sink and there's like 5 small fire extinguishers, and then she gives Torin a very pointed look and just shuts it.
Yes, we know who's been responsible.
Excellent. Right.
Just sidebar. Next time Torin does any fire, I will press digitation to put it out.
All right. So you get settled. You notice Nala also easily just fully grabs her flaming hot coffee, holds it for a second, and then takes a drink. Both of you make a perception check.
16.
Hold on.
I'm on fire tonight. I don't know why.
God,
Hopefully it
I
lasts.
was gonna say, I hope it doesn't fail you at the wrong moment.
Oh, also a 16.
All right. Both of you catch for just a second as her hand comes away from this scalding hot cup. You just see like the faintest like trail of fine golden scale across like the inner part of her hand. And then after she just kind of goes like this, and after a second, it's gone.
Too much invitation.
Awesome.
So
Is Beery
That was-
special?
I'm sorry.
Is Beery special too?
Oh,
The way Torin is.
always a little bit. The priestess and the Tarians always say that it's a blessing. I've gone through a lot of fire extinguishers. Beery never. It was hard to say. Torin, as you can see, is a little bit more excited about some of the gifts that he's been given. We've had to have a lot of conversations with his school and on using his little gifts responsibly.
fire is rough.
Beery, I don't know. Beery never seemed quite as excited about it. And after my husband passed away, I don't know that she used them at all.
Do you know if she was picked on in school? Often we try and hide things, and we are less akin to picking them up if we hide our differences so we can fit in.
Mhm.
No more so than anyone else, I would imagine. It was what Torin can do, what Beery could do is something we've only started seeing in the last 5-10 years. And it's been considered a great gift, a blessing. And if anything, I think maybe it was a bit of the opposite, that Beery was very celebrated for what she could do here in this community. But when Vant passed away, I think she never really processed it.
Mhm.
I think pulling back from her gifts was her form of theological protest.
Well, in the meantime, it looks like she's doing, it seems she's thriving at the Radiant Dawn. It's not, they seem to be all above board,
Yes.
which is good to know.
May I ask, when your husband passed, who all did Beery reach out to? Did she have a circle of friends her age?
She do we have metagaming pigeons in the background?
How do you tiptoe around? So we think your daughter was kidnapped by demons.
Well, Oric's trying real hard here, I can tell.
We split the rooms. Okay.
Demons.
Peanut gallery.
Nala kind of, I mean, there's definitely
You're wearing exactly the same shirt as Colby.
It's honestly very close across. I think if we had these in the right order, we'd have like a gradient
Yeah.
down to Joe's shirt.
Yeah, Joe's not in a polo, but otherwise, yeah.
Is your polo from Uniqlo, by the way?
I don't know. No, it's a different brand.
Very cool.
I got to buy the super tall shirts.
Oh yeah, Uniqlo wouldn't fit. It's made for, especially that is coming, because we bought it in Japan. It's
Yeah.
an XL.
Yeah.
Nala
Sorry.
looks. There's sort of a sad, wistful quality, or bittersweet might be the right word. She says, Beery was so excited to head off to school, and I think that it finally hit her with Vance passing. She was away from everyone that she had grown up with. She wasn't coming home much. I think that she really struggled to connect. And I think that's when she started to make connections with the Radiant Dawn. We value the tradition here, but at the same time, we're not opposed to the Solonists and what they're doing. We think hopefully it's all in service of good, but she seemed to get more and more distant. When she would come home, at first she would come to the center and she would see everyone, and she would come to some of the services, especially on the holidays, but there was less and less of that. And then eventually she was hardly coming home at all. It was just an occasional phone call, and then not even that. And that's when it had really dropped down to very little contact, and I was trying to reach out to her, and I was at our altar and I was praying, and I saw something. Tamara hasn't been as active in recent history as she was in the past, but there are many stories of people receiving of visions, of prophecy, of revelation into the world around them. I think we talk often of something called true sight, the ability to see things as they are. And actually, as she says this, Oric, you feel that amulet resonating again, that and both of you don't quite zone out, but it's almost like you're hearing Nala speak, and very vivid images of what she's saying are kind of appearing before you.
Fun.
And she says, I I saw a light, and it was Beery's light. And you see a very, very loosely feminine humanoid shape of light. And sort of wrapped around it are wings of light. The light in the center is sort of colored by the wings. And the wings have that sort of threaded metal coloration that you saw in the amulet. And it sort of casts that color over the light, and it takes on a, I mean, you would recognize the imagery. It takes on a platinum hue, almost like shimmering platinum. And she says, she goes on, and I saw something was coming for her. And you see another shape, and this one is another figure, and it also seems to be made of light, but the light has a flickering orange quality to it. And it reaches out, and it sort of reaches over without touching the wings and places a hand on her shoulder. And you see it, the first silhouette is sort of pulled out of these wings, and it loses this color, and it starts to take on this orange color. And then Nala doesn't narrate this part. You see this happen, and you would swear that this second figure, the one that reached out, it almost seems like it notices you're there. And it turns and looks sort of straight at you. And then it fades out.
Did you recognize where you saw Beery? Did you recognize who Beery was going to go be with? Did you recognize anyone besides Beery in your vision?
You would recognize that, like, you have functionally seen what she saw.
Right. So Zara wants to ask Nala if the grinning, scary person is familiar to her.
No, not that I had. There wasn't much detail to it. Also, she does stop and says, wait, grinning?
The grimace.
She quit narrating, and you saw that part anyway.
Did you not see a grin?
No, I just saw it sort of lead her away, and the light changed, and then it ended.
Well, that's funny. So the good news is you're not alone.
Bad news.
I'm gonna shift us lanes a little bit for a second and ask you. I'm not a very religious person myself, so help me out with what might be a basic question. Does Tamara have any enemies within your theological understanding?
That's a good question.
Tamara was one of many gods in the ancient pantheons. It was said that there was also balancer and a justice maker. There were other deities within her corner of the pantheon, and together they were protectors of righteousness and goodness, and they were gods of honor and justice and mercy. And so of course they had their opposites. Of course there's the just as Tamara and her cohorts were deities of the metallic dragons, there were deities of the chromatic dragons, equally powerful and horrible beings that wanted to consume and destroy. But there were other beings as well. There are a lot of legends of conflict with not just the chromatic dragons, but with aberrant things from beyond reality, with shadows and with demonic forces.
And were any of these beings known as, how do you say, seducers? Not in like a sexual sense, but in terms of like drawing people away from the light.
To be honest, it was a pretty common motif. There's some theological debate, which, to be honest, folks had not been super interested in for a long time, because as far as they knew, there weren't any miraculous clerics anymore. There were no holy warriors. There were no miracle workers. But there was some debate whether how much of the miracle was given by the deity and how much of it was the deity channeling something from the one who requested it. And we're well off into esoteric territory here. The priestess could probably tell you more, but there were a lot of stories of especially fallen paladins, of clerics whose miracles were corrupted to darkness, magic workers who made pacts with dark forces that were able to turn their gifts towards other purposes.
Well, it seems we're out of the esoteric theological debate now. And in the very real concern that
Just rip the band-aid off.
You best start believing in ghost stories, lass, because you're living it.
we're concerned about Beery, and we're really glad that you asked Auric to Mr. Durlanton to come and look after her, because it seems she's actually one of the pieces of a bigger puzzle that we're working on. And so, because it's a puzzle that we're already working on, we want to let you know that as we're working on it, we'll make sure that we try and untangle her from the puzzle as best we can.
Are any of you going to actually use the phrase "goat demons"?
I'm tempted. I'm just trying to figure out how to work it into a question.
What do you know about Stephen?
Yeah, like, I mean, you're talking about antagonists, to use a more literary phrase, that are gods of the chromatic dragons. This is going to be the strangest question you've probably ever heard.
She's a 9-year-old. I'm sure it's
She has
not.
you have a 9-year-old. It's not the strangest question you've ever heard.
From an adult.
That torrid.
Hey, Mom, what did he mean seducing in like a sexual way?
I'll tell you when you're older.
No, you have sex talks now. It's more important.
Does Tamaran theology, hagiology, demonology have any connection to, say, goat demons?
Just went out and said it. Damn dragon. Come on.
Just repeat it off.
Nala is sort of dumbstruck for a second, but Torin, who was like pretending to not be paying that much attention a little further away, has like jumped up and gone, "Goat demons, where?" And there's like, you actually see this time a little bit of scale, of golden scale, sort of comes across the side of his face, and like little bits of like proto fire starts forming in his teeth.
Yeah. Zary's totally looking at the window. Like, what is the best exit? Because this is more dragons than we were going in for.
There were not a lot of it's hard to goat demons.
We were pretty
Just an example.
No, I got to do it. Auric, make a deception check.
I'm still rolling well. 21.
Good
All right,
God.
that high charisma. She just lets it slide. It's hard to say too specifically because, as I understand it, the draconic deities had their own sort of corner of the pantheon to themselves. Most of the most famous stories are conflicts between the chromatic and metallic dragons and their various servants and creatures. But I do know that there was all manner of other sorts of demons that supposedly had much easier access to our world in ages past. I can't think of a specific story, but that, I mean, it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility.
Well,
Okay,
it's
just a
realm of-
quick question of clarification. When you say easier, do you mean that it was easier back then or they had it easier than others?
It was easier back then.
Okay.
Well, with the gates opening, it's
Yeah.
what once was is now again.
Truth.
I'm going
Anyway.
to breathe fire at a goat demon.
If you hear from Beery, please let Mr. Darnlett know as soon as possible.
Yes.
And we'll let you know if we learn anything.
Yes.
So you're not gonna tell her that she was
I-
pregnant?
I do feel kind of awkward holding on to this, so I feel like I should. I found this amulet and I feel awkward holding on to it. It feels like it belongs here.
She knows she's dead now. You just gave this poor woman the only symbol that she thought her daughter was safe. And you
I mean,
Make a perception check.
both?
Yeah.
13.
19.
Oric, you're kind of looking at the amulet as you go to hold it out. Zyra, you're watching Nala really closely. She looks at it for a second, and then there's like a flicker, and then another flicker, and then her eyes go a shimmering platinum light. Not like metal, but like shimmering light and nothing else for just a second. And then she speaks in a voice that Oric has heard recently, and says, "No, I think you should keep this for now."
Okay.
Great. Okay. Okay. Great. Lovely.
And I'll even say, because you got what, a 19?
Yeah.
Zyra, I'll say you also notice that just because he goes quiet for a second, because Torin was still like jump punching, "I'm gonna fight the goat demons," rah, rah. And he goes quiet, and you look over and you notice that he too has flickered for just a second.
Okay. But do we need to start investigating them? Because their eyes and the people, the glowy hands are also the glowing eyes people. This is not a cool thing. All right, cool. Awesome.
I will say this: both of you make an insight check.
Vision.
Different
Lights, different colors.
I can't keep track of the colors.
No, from like 10 minutes ago.
What? There were details?
There was the vision, the platinum light of
Yeah.
Beery, and then the orange light of the creepy
Yeah,
grin.
yeah. So, but I'm supposed to remember what the color of the glowing eyes were and the other
Yeah,
things?
so platinum good. No, just platinum good, orange bad. So they got platinumized again.
Metal good, non-metal bad.
Yeah, glowing eyes, bad.
Well, here's what we'll say. So Zyra's subconscious brain is putting this stuff together, even if we're playing at like 9 o'clock at night and all the brains are not hitting like we'd like.
the thing.
So this is the fourth or fifth holy site that you've been to in like 3 days.
Yeah, 72 hours, fifth holy site. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, it's a different energy, but especially compared to like the Pather temple gave you an impression of like chaotic liveliness. It was a place of just lots of different energies all going in different directions and doing their own things, but in a way that sort of there was harmony out of the many parts. The spiritualist places had a more gentle sort of natural energy to them. They had a sense of sort of like being at peace in out in the woods or the mountains or by the lake. That sense of sort of the awe-inspiring oneness with nature. This place feels like a bright, clear chime. It's a different quality, but it still has a, if anything, almost a brighter nature to it.
It has a resonance.
Yeah.
For me, it feels like home, and given my complicated nature with home, I should specify a good kind of home.
Yeah. I mean, you both feel weirdly safe here. Like, I don't know that you'd be able to explain why you feel safe, but this place feels safe.
Okay.
Anything else?
I think we're probably all about done here. Apart from a random question. I've got money riding on this one.
Oh no.
Is there any case that you know of where a human can grow horns?
I mean, not me personally. I mean, as I understand it, back in sort of the heroic legendary age, all sorts of things, unusual things like that happened all the time. But not recently, I would say.
Okay. Well, then I don't think either one of us gets the money yet. Thank you, at least.
Sure. Please call me if you hear from Beery.
Oh, absolutely.
Who? Ask if anybody's missing. Who?
Inquisitive owls?
Yeah. Are is anyone else from the community missing? Where are we? Where are we?
Tamarin Community Center
Tamarin.
in Verde.
What do you mean? What was it, Jack?
Yeah, yeah, Jack.
Have you
Where's
all actually? Is this the
Yeah.
first time you've mentioned that Beery is missing? Because I'm pretty
Yes.
sure at the top of this, you said that the last time you saw her, she was fine.
Yes,
That's
this
what I
is the
said.
first time.
That's what I said.
Whispering that under my breath.
Wait a minute.
I mean, Beery's missing in the sense that she has not returned home.
We don't actually know.
We're not going to talk about the fact that she's kidnapped.
We don't know that for sure.
I don't even know if she's kidnapped. I think she's being seduced to the dark side.
Okay. I mean, I think you could still argue that she's been kidnapped because there might be some issue of being able to actually really give consent.
Okay.
But, you know.
But we don't necessarily anyway. Yeah, is there anyone else conspicuously absent?
Not that I'm aware of. It's I mean, there's only maybe a couple hundred people total coming through this place at any given time, and most of the families have been here a long time. And if anything, it's what makes it so conspicuous that Beery has been absent for so long.
200's big enough to miss a few pieces. We'd appreciate it if you would ask around. Maybe a Jack? We're not sure.
What was the second part of that?
Maybe a Jack. We're not sure.
Huh, that doesn't sound familiar. It doesn't sound like a Tamaran name.
Yeah. Now I'm curious if the guy who summoned the creatures was a Tamaran. The one who got incinerated at the river.
Mm.
And Auric, her saying that just randomly puts together in your head all of the Tamaran names you've heard so far are definitely like slightly bastardized draconic words.
Yep. Ironically enough, Torin means ice.
So that's what I was wondering. Maybe if somebody else was missing, we could try to find who they were.
No, that's fair. Thank you so much for your time, Nala.
Of course, and let me know if you if you hear anything. And let me know if you got any goat demons to fight.
Definitely help you.
I minor illusion of fire over his head.
He like ah. All right. So sort of in between these moments, we'll say that this sort of pops up as a news alert. And Zyra and Auric, you catch this sort of on your way out, and Lexi and Cyrus, we'll say Lexi is probably driving and Cyrus is looking at his phone, and you get another little local news update, and it's actually at the Radiant Dawn headquarters, at their worship center, and it's not like a formal press conference, but it looks like there was maybe some reporters there who wanted to talk about this Solinist conference. And it's Nicholas Webster being interviewed, and you just catch sort of the tail part of it, and he says, this meeting tonight is an important occasion, a chance for Solonists of all stripes and backgrounds to put aside their differences and address the unsafe and intense situation that's been growing in our town. I've just recently received word that one of our own, a volunteer who is very dedicated and has been here day in and day out, was attacked at her apartment last evening. This kind of violence can't be allowed to continue. We have to find some kind of peaceful resolution. And of course, we implore all of the legal authorities of the city to continue to do their best to hunt down whoever's responsible for these horrible actions. Then it kind of cuts out.
Hang on, he said attacked. One demon got in and just sat there.
To be fair, you didn't narrate it to him.
We told, but yeah, I can't remember exactly what we told him, but we told him some stuff. So attacked would not be an unreasonable
For
extrapolation.
clarity's sake, since we're on public transit, I whisper that. I don't say it loudly.
Don't even know that you know things.
The letter that I got that Zara got under her door 48 hours ago. Does Zara still have it?
Yes.
Okay. Zara wants to, well, she's got her phone out. She's just been mulling it over. And she wants to text her father and ask her father if he has kept it, if there's any like old journals of her mother's. And if there are, if he could just snap a photo of a random page.
You've actually got a box of assorted things from their past that you got after the Sunday dinner.
Oh yeah. Cool.
You've had the answers all along, Dorothy.
Yeah. I'll stop by home or the studio I'm staying at and go open the box up.
All right. So we'll say Auric, is there anything you want to be kind of doing in this little window?
We're heading to meet up with Cyrus and Lexi, I presume. And apart from that, just I guess I'll be scrolling through to learn more about the Tamarans.
So now we'll get our timelines back in sync. So we're going to rewind a couple of hours.
All right.
And now we are back to Lexi driving Pokey and Cyrus in the passenger seat, heading to. Lieutenant Davis wouldn't have brought you immediately to the Hall of Light. Instead, he has invited you all to meet him at like a commissary area at the Special Crimes Unit headquarters. It's the most rundown building that you've ever seen in Central. Central tends to be kind of Central is sort of the overlap between Old Imperial, Riverside, and the Plaza, which are all kind of like the really nice areas of town. The Plaza being very, very new, Old Imperial being the oldest, Riverside being the most exclusive. Central is where a lot of like the government buildings are, and they tend to still be pretty impressive. This is not one of those. This looks like it was maybe a somewhat shabby office building that was purchased and re-outfitted as a small police precinct.
Your daddy's looking for you.
And Cyrus in particular, you would know that while the Special Crimes Unit gets a lot of, they've captured the public imagination in a lot of ways, but they've still got a bad rap from like the rest of the police force. There's a lot of jokes about like the fairy tale squad and just like this is still sort of a joke. So even though they have some special resources, at the same time, maybe not all the luxuries that are possible. So Lieutenant Davis directs you to a special lot around the back where he's arranged for you to be able to park. So you're easily able to get back there. You do have to sort of sign in at a desk as you come in. But being walked in by the lieutenant doesn't take any time or energy at all. And Cyrus, you're actually, Lexi probably is the only one who needs it. You get like a temporary, like sticky photo ID.
Yeah.
Whereas Cyrus, you can just kind of flash your NBI card and walk in. Has to be good for something occasionally. Since 99% of people don't know what it is.
Yeah.
So you see a lot of people running around. It looks very bullpen. You see a lot of officers like typing up reports. You see a mix of like plain clothes and people who are maybe on like a paperwork duty day. Some of them are, goofing off and talking or eating lunch. Some of them are, or brunch, I guess. Some of them are typing reports. You do see a few unusual things. You pass a clear like glass partition separating what you would guess would be like a forensics lab, but you see all kinds of like super weird stuff in there. There are like, little technological complicated looking devices. You see some burners and some some evidence racks and stuff, but you also see like floating crystals that are glowing and like bubbling vats of something sitting on like a green alchemical fire, some kind of super fast, you would guess like a winged familiar, like maybe an imp or something, not necessarily fiendish, so we don't run down a rabbit trail, but maybe something in more like the homunculus territory is back and forth, carrying like little evidence bags very carefully. And you do see that there's
thought it was evidence. I was like, what are they doing keeping a... Never.
He's the evidence homunculus. Yeah, just some unusual stuff. You see some like unusual equipment mixed in among the officers. A few guns that have like telltale like magical inscriptions on them. Some like tactical vests and things that have unusual like sigils painted onto them, or weird materials woven through that make them glimmer in strange ways. You'd be pretty familiar with the stuff happening in here. Lexi, this might look weird to you. This is a glimpse into a modern fantasy, police precinct.
Like we'll do like she does with everything else and roll with it while her human will laugh at the cat that has gone spastic.
So
Lexi's bar talks. So
not audibly.
Yeah, Lexi's bar talks to her, and it's really more like a feeling than it is like actual language. It doesn't speak common.
just saying.
Speaking of which, Lexi, you do get a vibe here. There is something, familiar is too strong of a word, but there is definitely something, there's an echo here that reminds you of something. But it's just sort of like in the back of your head as you come in. So Lieutenant Davis there's a majority of his demeanor suggests absolute exhaustion. He looks so very tired. He is not wearing a uniform. He's wearing basically what you saw him in the bar, sort of like a crisp polo tucked into khakis, but he's got like a badge and a gun and some other things like on a special belt. He's very prominently got his Solinist holy symbol around his neck, but like dark circles under his eyes. His hair is a little bit of a mess. He looks like he has not been sleeping. And just a hint though of like, he immediately gets just a little like red in the face and a little awkward once you all are walking across. Like it seems like maybe he like stumbles into a few more pieces of furniture and chairs and people and things as he leads you all over. And then a little awkwardly he says, we've got I guess we've mostly got, I guess, coffee. We could probably find something else.
Just water's fine.
Cyrus will take a coffee.
He steps over. This room is like kind of halfway between like an office break room and like an actual cafeteria. So you see like a couple of fridges, but you also see some places where food's laid out, and there's a little it's not open right now, but it looks like almost a small convenience store deli type thing where it looks like maybe people can grab sandwiches and stuff. He goes over and pours a pair of coffees and tucks a water sort of under his arm. You notice he does use like the grip things and does not burn himself.
Not that we would know that, but
that's true.
You know.
But he brings it over and says, oh my gosh. So you all have found something out, right? Anything, something, maybe?
sorry, we have a spaz.
We
Let's see,
were-
what have we found out?
So let's see. When I called you last night, we were tailing a suspect. Unfortunately, they managed to magically, they had planted some sort of psychic whammy thing inside our vehicle, and so we lost them.
Don't forget they transported me to the other world.
Yeah.
All right.
So, with your permission, I'd like to be on, have us stationed somewhere on the perimeter at the meeting tonight. Try to scope out any spot that looks particularly weak, or if we can find any similarities in structure to the Pather site attack, comparing buildings and cameras, since they apparently seem to know how to avoid cameras decently well, and see if we can't figure out where they might approach, and if they show up tonight, we'll be ready for them.
I think we can make that work.
I'm also really good at taking care of ruly crowds legally.
Unruly crowds.
Unruly crowds.
Well,
She's even
we're-
better with mini crowds.
well, I think we're going to need it tonight.
Rule following crowds.
Yeah, well, see, I mean, I moved them from being ruly crowds to unruly crowds, you know, when you think about it.
Other way.
Other way. Are you sure about that? Because I was meaning getting them drunk.
Oh, okay.
See, I was
mean-
right.
That too.
Take you from ruly to unruly and back again.
Yes.
Basically.
He says, yeah. Perimeter shouldn't be hard. The inside of the buildings are supposed to be locked down pretty tight. They're basically just letting in a couple of the leaders. The imminent will be there. I guess they're letting in I guess imminent Manfur will be in attendance as well, and imminent Webster, and then a few of their assistants and things. They're trying to keep the building as empty as possible. Oh, goodness. There's already people showing up outside. This is what I was hoping to avoid this whole time. There's going to be a lot of people very tense, very angry, and it's going to be people who all think the others are out to get them, and they're all going to be protesting outside. So yes, any help will be good.
You said you have the building locked down tight, but are you going to have anybody patrolling the interior to make sure there's not anything that got snuck in?
The way I understand it is the building is sort of being swept now. once they're sure that it's clear, a couple hours before everything's supposed to start, they'll allow the Solinist leaders to sort of arrive and get settled. The plan, as far as I know, is to keep the building as empty as possible, because there's more of a buffer between them and the crowd. The way I understand it, they're setting up in the central hall itself. It's sort of the most central point on the campus. Anyone who's not part of security will be limited to sort of the edge of the campus's lawn. I wish I thought all of that was going to be enough to help. I don't know how to plan for goat demons, though.
Sorry, you're not the only one.
As you can imagine, fireballs and goat demons did not feature centrally at the police academy.
Wouldn't have thought that.
Anywho, I'm getting little tired, little morose, I guess. Yeah, let me grab some paperwork. And he goes away for a minute, and you see him talk to a couple people, comes back with a couple of sheets from this person, a couple sheets from this person. He's got like a big like rolled up tube under one arm, and comes back, and it's a couple of basically like release forms. Cyrus, you'd be very familiar with this. It's basically he's listing you all as contracted security as a pretense for you to sort of be involved. You might actually have done this exact thing for real at some point. He gets that handled. There's several waivers. He gives you copies for Zyra and Auric as well. And then he unfurls a big map of the Hall of Light. And there's a few pictures that go with it. The pictures look like they're maybe from the official sort of website, but they've been sort of printed for reference. The biggest thing you notice is that this grand hall has basically no furniture at all. Lexi, make a religion check with advantage. I guess Auric, make a check straight. Cyrus. It confuses me when you all split, like your names are now in diagonal pairs.
Yeah.
Your names are under each of your windows.
Hey, I got a 16. Thanks, advantage. That
All
first
right.
one was a 2.
So Solinist worship is very much about this sort of mystical experience of light, to the point where the reason there's no furniture is because the services will literally align differently in the room depending on how the light strikes it. And there's all of these like panels of sort of mosaics of different colors of glass in all these different like locations all along the walls. And depending on the time of day, it lights up the room in different ways and in different patterns. And so, Lexi, you would probably have been to some of these services as a kid. Although if you weren't going to like the Hall of Light, like the sort of biggest temple in town, smaller sites would have much smaller versions of this. But you might have gone for like a we'll call it the equivalent of like a Christmas service at some point.
Annie, Christmas and Easter.
Let's go a solstice.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be perfect.
There you go.
And so on special occasions, there are even services that basically run from just before dawn to just after dusk. And literally, it's sort of a almost a sort of monastic spiritual practice. And they follow the light in patterns through the room over the course of the whole day. There's a very slow, contemplative, again, very mystical vibe. And at different points in the day, the lights like interplay in different ways. Different patterns connect. You would probably in some of their like promotional stuff, they have like the high speed version, like sped up for the equivalent of like the ad that runs on local TV. Come see what Solonism has to offer, but classier than that.
I'm really envisioning a cross between the worship space at Candler School of Theology at Emory, which is designed with no seating in the main space, and then also the Beehive, which is a poured concrete worship sanctuary in the middle of Minnesota at a monastery. It's where the St. John's Bible was illustrated. And it's yeah.
See, I think I've seen the other.
It kind of looks like a spaceship beehive.
Oh, it pulled up literal like beehives in the shape of churches, which I guess is not that surprising.
It's the St. John's Monastery in Minnesota.
You tried.
Got her so far.
Anyway, I have those two worship spaces.
Oh yeah, very much.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, just for the point of reference, the St. John's Abbey with the sort of beehive wall, in my mind, it was a little bit that and like a splash of like Duke Chapel, with sort of non-narrative stained glass.
Yeah. The beehive itself is stained glass.
Yeah.
Just for okay, yeah.
I was looking at a picture.
Yeah.
Oh yes, okay, I see it.
Yeah. The acoustics are either terrible or wonderful, depending on your perspective.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They're great for singing. It's terrible for hearing.
I've been in some places like that. All right. Do you have any specific questions for Lieutenant Davis or preparations you want to make or other stuff you've thought to check out?
I mean, Jay, here's definitely where I want to do the like, John doesn't have a clue about any of this, but I feel like Cyrus does. To either like try to like triangulate weak points, triangulate reasonable points of entry, where are there camera blinds, are there any similarities to this space to the path or site that would suggest where somebody would attack it?
So let's call this an investigation check with advantage.
Okay.
And this will represent, Cyrus sort of racking his brain and putting all of his training to use on this. And even if the roll is terrible, you'll still get something because this is your skill set.
Yeah. I got a natural 18, but I don't remember what my modifier is.
Investigation,
Probably
betting
plus
you're at a 5 or 6, unless you have expertise.
I mean, you're definitely proficient, so that's at least +2.
Yeah, and it's intelligence, which is a +3. So,
Yeah.
all right, it's +5. So 23.
All right. So you've got a pretty good feel here. A couple of things come to mind. One, a lot of traditional things, a lot of the traditional thinking about this probably in some ways doesn't apply, simply because you're not sure. You're dealing with what's probably a supernatural threat of some kind. And so it makes the rules funny.
Sure.
Your suspicion is that probably the general officers outside will be helpful at controlling the crowd and hopefully stopping any like overt violence or anything from escalating too wildly. Your sort of personal read is you don't expect them to be helpful at all if like a giant demon shows up or something. In fact, based on your experience with the demand in the Kent building, you don't even know if like they will physically be able to endure whatever
Sure.
whatever occurs.
Yeah.
One thing that does stick out to you is what you've gathered from these other sites is that locations like this do tend to have their own sort of esoteric built-in defenses. You would expect that there are probably countermeasures. Like, you know, for sure that the various spiritualist locations in town, especially when the abbot or abbess or whoever sort of the attuned person is to that location, they can access some fairly fantastic abilities, especially in defense of that place.
Yeah. I mean, we saw.
Yeah. And you would expect that very likely at the center of Solinist worship in town, you would expect at least that caliber of defense, if not more. Partially just because spiritualists are more dispersed, whereas Solinists are much more centralized in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
Other things that stick out. I mean, definitely the easiest mode of access is to have someone let you inside. One way or the other, whether that means someone from inside letting someone else in, or even someone potentially being part of one of the official parties there.
Right.
Trying to sort of run across these lawns in functional broad daylight in front of thousands of people and a ton of police seems very stupid. Yeah. You have very little impression that would be effective for a mundane humanoid, even one who is very skilled. Magic and the strange makes that a little more unclear. Basically, the short version is the things that they are good at looking at, they've already figured out. It's probably going to be something weird or someone betraying the group that makes a hole in the security.
Yeah.
Okay. So what access does our paperwork get us?
So Lieutenant Davis kind of this will get you to the perimeter. For the most part, there's going to be hardly anyone past that point, not even other officers. I think maybe there's been some kind of compromise that I might be allowed to be there as a sort of civil and religious point of overlap, to be both to be an approved official presence in the room. What complicates all of this a little bit is that this is as much a religious function as it is an organizational or institutional meeting. That was part of how the Eminence arranged it. There's plenty of conference rooms and, you know, side rooms and offices and things they could have met in. But I think the implication is that they're not just hoping to come up with a 10-step action plan, but there's actually a hope that being in that place together in unity might evoke some kind of protection or influence that might help resolve the situation.
And I guess the other thing Cyrus want to ask is, like, can y'all, like, either y'all special crimes or y'all Solinists do, like, you know, holy stuff, banishment stuff, like get some like exorcism loner or something?
Well, I mean, on that point, you do have a little bit in your favor. Make a persuasion check.
Okay. Nat one.
Oh Lord.
He says, well, at least on that point, you have some advantages. If there's anyone in town who can do something like that from the Solinists, they're going to be in that room.
Okay.
I mean, I would at least suspect that Eminent Lux, he can do some fairly spectacular things. He's usually very reluctant to use and abuse those sorts of gifts, but as I understand it, he's capable of some fairly spectacular feats. I don't know too much specifically about what is it, Eminent Webster, but Lux certainly.
Oh, just there.
At least Davis is named.
How many leaders are coming to this?
And the answer is those three. Plus maybe some two.
Any other questions?
Do we have a way to communicate with him on site if we need to?
Wait, Davis or Lux?
Davis.
Okay, yeah. Davis will be easy to get a hold of. You've got his number, and he'll have the plan as he conveys it is that he will be sort of on the periphery of the conversation in the room. He's not like an official participant per se. He's there to answer a question if it's asked, but otherwise he's kind of just loosely the security person in the room. And if you were to call, he'd be able to sort of step away and answer.
Okay.
He's got the signal app.
Yeah. So in that case, I will just impress upon him, if anything like the Kent building happens, you call me immediately.
If anything like that happens, you will definitely be one of the first calls. And I hope that doesn't happen.
No dinosaurs, please.
All right. Anything else? Any other preparations?
I can't think of anything, so.
All right. I'm just going to push us into put a little momentum as we, I guess, head into a break, right? Next week is the week we can't play.
Yeah.
So just a little momentum to chew on. So the meeting officially starts at about 5. So you all have had a few hours to rest and recuperate and reconvene. You've been able to make any of the plans that you wanted to, and during the interlude, you all can kind of text back and forth on some of those. So you are Pokey is safely stored. You had to park Pokey like 3 blocks away. A lot of the official parking lot is sort of shut off. A lot of like police presence is there, and there's definitely like several hundred people out here. You see a big contingent that Lexi and Cyrus would identify pretty easily as the True Light crowd. They're being fairly belligerent and starting arguments. You see some other folks who, it's none of the specific leaders that you've met up to this point, but you do gather that there are pathers and spiritualists there who are either directly blaming the Solonists for the things that have happened, or are condemning the police for not doing enough. There's a very tense atmosphere. There's a lot of placards. There's a lot of yelling. Police are kind of awkwardly standing at barricades, occasionally like gently busting up knots of confrontation. It's a tense atmosphere. The sun, you do notice as the sun it's just starting to set a little, the light starts to hit parts of the campus of the Hall of Light. And the Hall of Light itself is this huge white marble building. There's a luminous sheen to it where the light is hitting it. But also you can see the light is hitting these huge stained glass windows at all these different places along the exterior of the building. But there's also these they almost look like wind chimes, but made for light. Like sort of art, giant freestanding art, like a hanger with a collection of colored shards of glass.
Like Chihuly or prisms?
Say it again.
Like Chihuly or prisms?
These would be almost like sections of the stained glass window, like hanging and just sort of gently turning a little. And it creates this very beautiful kaleidoscopic effect. If you weren't distracted by the lights of police cruisers and all the people yelling, and it would actually be a very nice atmosphere. And you see these sort of spread all across, and I don't know if I can see it well enough. The camera screen camera is like making
Yeah.
funny.
Fair. Never mind.
So there's this beautiful wash of color, and again, it's a different energy than the other locations. It's probably closest to the Tamarin Center. Auric and Zyra would sort of recognize. There's a bright, clear energy to this space. It's almost like a ray of sunlight, and it borders on too much sometimes. It's the kind of thing where if you were walking out of a cold place, it would warm you, but if you stayed in it too long, you might start to feel a little too hot. There's a clarity and just a hint of maybe overbearingness to it. It is certainly the farthest thing from the sort of subtle energies you felt at the spiritualist sites. How are you all how would you sort of be situating yourself with this crowd in this perimeter? What would you be doing?
I have no clue because I woke up at 4:30 this morning.
I am deferring to Cyrus and going where he tells me to go and looking where he tells me to look.
I'd probably be prowling for troublemakers. Do it one of these numbers with the tree lighters.
Yeah, I mean, so Cyrus is either probably bouncing around between main entrance and anything that looks like a weaker point that somebody could approach from that's got less crowd presence, kind of keeping an eye on both.
Just for fun, all of you make a perception check.
Oh boy.
This is going to be a twofer.
The dice have failed me.
Oh my god, a nat one.
Hold on.
I got a 16.
16.
Hold on. I don't have anything available.
You jinxed it earlier when you said that it would fail me at the worst time possible.
This might not be the worst time possible.
Sorry.
Narratively speaking, this is a bad time.
Okay.
21.
All right. So Zyra, you catch all of these. Cyrus and Lexi, you catch some of these. Auric, you catch none of these.
Hors d'oeuvres!
There are odd effects as you all walk past there's probably, I would say, dozens of these different hanging light pieces. And they're just sort of scattered all around. And there's a couple of sort of auxiliary buildings in different places. It looks like maybe some of the offices are separate from the main Hall of Light. But as you all sort of walk around, you would almost say it's a trick of the light, except that you've just seen too many weird things at this point. Zyra, you catch it. Auric does not. Auric, I think maybe you're just kind of overwhelmed by the sheer amount of humanity happening. When Auric walks past one of these, the light hits the glass. The light that's filtered through the glass hits Auric, and his shadow is his real shadow. It's a little insubstantial, but it's not the ring of seeming. When Lexi goes past, that amber light flares up. It's not necessarily, it doesn't seem to be resisting the other light as much as it is just like gently incompatible. They are not interconnecting pieces. Zyra, you would swear that you can hear like chords, like there's a music to this light when you get near it, like just sort of like a half-heard melody that sort of swirls through the light as you walk by. And Cyrus, you cast an unusually long shadow as you walk past some of these. And where your shadow and this colorful light kind of bleed together, and your shadow stretches long, just at the edges, an astute observer might catch the silhouettes of flapping birds. And of course, all this is sort of spaced out over an increasingly tense 10, 20, 30 minutes. You all are standing out here. The crowds are starting to get restless. They're at that point sort of between either something needs to happen, or we're going to go home, or we're going to start a fight, or something. There's just a feeling of like held breath. And what is that? Auric, you're still distracted.
I found Scotch eggs.
Zyra, you catch it first. It starts as a bad taste in your mouth, and then you smell it a little. There's a sulfurous quality to the air.
Oh, Lieutenant Dan.
And as you notice this, you realize the light passing through the glass is starting to look strange. Even though the glass is all different colors, the light that's passing through, the color is leaching out of it. And all it's leaving is flickering orange patches of light that almost look like little tongues of flame. And you realize that the center of light has moved. The shadows are being cast in all different strange directions. It's like the sun isn't overhead anymore, but instead there's a sort of like ambient light coming up from beneath and sort of reflecting off of the buildings around. And this ambient orange light starts to give the hall a flame-touched, almost blood red color.
Brought that damn fire extinguisher.
All these insidious little touches intrude at the edge of your consciousnesses, and you realize that a hell plane is opening around you. And Auric, your phone rings.
Not a great sign.
Hello?
Dark Lantern. It's Nala. They they took Torin,
Oh, that's not good.
and your phone cuts off. And that's where we're going to stop.
Well, in good news, we all know that a 9-year-old's gonna give them some hell. He gonna beat those goat demons out.
So we will pick up here in
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Yep, and then we have another break in 2 weeks, with you all bathed in hell light at the edges of the Hall of Light, and see what happens next.
Awesome.
Okay.
I'm gonna, oops,
Scotch eggs.
I think you can get more later.
I'm gonna cut our recording.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us, robots on the internet.